Hello everyone, this is Hakaym and welcome back to some more World of Warships, and today we are saying goodbye to the Tier 8 German battleship, the Bismarck, and I am going to sorely miss this ship. I love my Bismarck, and if you play the Tirpitz, you're playing the Bismarck essentially. The major difference is the lack of torpedoes and the increased secondary guns that she does have. So that's something to keep in mind. But yes, still a fun ship. So let's quickly look at stats. Survivability 69,200. She's probably one of the beefiest ships there is, including her armor, which has that turtleback armor, obviously. So you definitely are. It's very difficult to citadel a Bismarck, but it can be done. Usually, from what I've seen or from what I've done is citadeling from the deck armor, because that is a little bit thinner than her side armor. So that's something to keep in mind. Torpedo protection is 24%. German battleships just really don't like that torpedoes, um, especially if you compare it to, say, the Amagi, which the Amagi has 45% torpedo protection. So definitely something to keep in mind. You want to stay away from torpedoes, and the Bismarck has a advantage over the Amagi with the hydroacoustics. So always want to use that when you are near a destroyer. So survivability is fantastic. Artillery's freaking good. So artillery's pretty fantastic. You have 4 turrets, 2 guns each, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and they have a slightly smaller caliber than, say, the North Carolina or the Amagi with their 410 millimeter shells. They have 380, so you don't always have that huge punching power that the North Carolina and the Amagi enjoy, but you still can do pretty good damage. But the main gimmick, I guess you could say, of the German battleships is their secondary armaments, which with the proper captain skills and modules, you can get the firing range out to 10.6. So essentially you have a destroyer on each side, and you have 8 dual 105 millimeters and 6 dual 150 millimeters, and they reload pretty quick. 6.4 seconds on the 150 and 2.9 on the 105s. So main guns, they have a max damage of 11,600 with a range of 19.3. And I would not recommend getting the extended range. Yes, it could be beneficial, but the Bismarck has a major issue with her dispersion. She is more of a brawler ship. She does a more fantastic job against closer ships, obviously, since she has that excellent secondaries. So you want to be a little bit closer than, say, what the North Carolina and the Amagi really want to be in. So you can always take advantage of that, as you will see in the replay. So definitely want to do that. I probably wouldn't go for the increased range, but that's just me. Now, a defense is not bad. It's pretty decent, all considering. You have 14 20 millimeters. You have 16 quads 20 millimeters, and these have a range of 2.4, 2.4, and then you have 10 dual 37 millimeters with a range of 4.2. And then your secondary 105s also have a range of 5.4, 147 damage. So that's something to keep in mind. So overall, AA's not bad. It's not the greatest. It's nothing like a North Carolina, but it's not bad. Maneuverability, she is the quickest Tier 8 battleship there is. She has, I believe, 3 knots over the Amagi and about 7 knots over the North Carolina. And her turning circle radius is a bit large, 850 meters, but her rudder shift time is 12.8 seconds. So you do have some maneuverability, but once again, you're not the greatest as far as turning. And one little side note is the Bismarck is probably the slowest on the takeoff. If you're going from a sitting still position and trying to power up, it does take the Bismarck a little while to actually get moving. She is historically underpowered, so they have actually added that to the game, so she does have a slow acceleration. So definitely something to keep in mind, and you could possibly even get the increased speed on the Bismarck just so you can get up on the speed a little bit faster. Now, my captain has the concealment expert, which decreases the detectability range by C to 12.3. I find it beneficial because it allows you to get away, especially if you're being fired on, as you will see once again in the battle. Being able to get away from being hammered away by HE is definitely beneficial, and also allows you to get in closer without being detected, and it really can become quite potent when you are using your secondaries and main guns to take out a enemy ship. So that's why I went that route. Now, as far as modules, she has increased. She has auxiliary armaments mod 1, which increases the survivability of the AA and secondaries to 100%. I also went for the secondary battery modification 2, which increases the range and decreases the dispersion by 20%. Obviously went for Damcom system 1. And then, like I said, you could possibly go for propulsion mod 2, which once again reduces the percentage on reaching full power. So minus 50% to time for reaching full power when accelerating forward, which is somewhat beneficial for the Bismarck because she is very slow to actually start. But I went for steering mods 2 just so I am a little bit more nimble when actually starting to turn, which once again, her rudder shift time is a bit lazy. And obviously I went for Concealment System Mod 1, which reduces the range of detection, but it is fully plausible to actually get the Target Acquisition System Mod 1. Your acquisition of enemy ships by 50%, and 20% to spotting range, and 20% to the acquisition range of torpedoes. So this is very beneficial, but you lose the ability to slip away a little bit more easily. And like I said, I did not go for the increased range. On my guns, it does increase your range to 21.2, which I believe is just slightly underneath the North Carolina. It's been a while since I've played the North Carolina, so she has about the second best range. Malgi is around 19.1 kilometers, something like that. So you can go for it if you want to. I just don't recommend it because your dispersion is terrible at range. As you will see, your shells tend to have a mind of their own and they will go all over. Now, captain skills. My captain is a 16-point captain. He's actually a 17-point captain. He's working on his other skills. Obviously, I went for the basics firing training, which decreases the reload time of main battery guns and increases the average damage per second of AA guns, which is very, very beneficial. This is after I came back. I went for basics of survivability, which decreases the amount of time for fire extinguishing and recovery from flood. Then obviously go for expert marksman. Superintendent is very beneficial because you do get that additional heal, but if you want, you can go for vigilance, which increases the acquisition range of torpedoes by 25%. And if you are doing a secondary build like I am on my Bismarck, I went for advanced firing training, which increases the range of main battery guns with a caliber up to 139 millimeters and secondary batteries by 20%, and it also increases the range of your AA guns by 20%, so very beneficial. Now here's the little thing I did differently. Instead of going for the manual control on your secondaries, which does decrease your max dispersion by 60% once you get up to tier 8 through 10, but instead I went for the concealment expert, which decreases your detectability by 14%. Now, a lot of people, if you're doing a full secondary build, you'll go for the manual fire control because of the decrease of dispersion, which is very beneficial if you're wanting to actually rely more on your secondaries. But my thinking is, when you do this, you have to actually manually click on a target to actually activate your secondary batteries to start firing at a target. The downside is if, say, you have two ships on, a ship on each side, and you have to pick out which one is a more priority target, and you'll click on him and say it's on the starboard, your guns on your starboard side will start firing, but the guns on your port side will not fire at all. and that can very limit on how much damage you could have done to the ship on your port side. So without the manual fire control, both sides will fire at will. As soon as there's a ship in range, they'll just begin firing. But the dispersion is much greater without the manual fire control. So you won't get as many hits, but you'll still be able to hit the other target on the other side, which at times can be very beneficial. I have had a few instances where I've had both sides going off and able to do significant damage to the ship that I was least concerned about. So that is basically my Bismarck, and I am, like I said, I'm looking forward to the VIII, even though I've heard some things about her. We'll see how she is. And I'm also saddened by saying goodbye to the Bismarck. But hopefully you guys will enjoy the replay, and I will see you guys there. Alright everyone, welcome back to your replay with the Bismarck. And unfortunately, I lost my replay due to the fact that the update of 5.16 came around and I no longer have the replay, and it was a really good replay. I'll go ahead and post the pictures on the screen right now of the replay that would have happened, but unfortunately I had to find a alternative because generally when I move on to another ship, I will generally sell my Bismarck and then have the replay. So we are actually going to be showing off a replay from Freakianer. So I'll call him Freak just to be a little bit short. And we currently are playing on Trap. We have a Ranger, 3 Turpets, a Bismarck, a Magi, Colorado, New Orleans, Hipper, Chapayev, Myoko, and a Farragut. On the enemy team, there's a Saipan, North Carolina, 3 Turpets, a Bismarck, Colorado, Edinburgh, 2 Otagos, Pensacola, and Atsuki. So Freak does spot a Pensacola, opens up with his first salvo. And RNGesus must have been really kind with Freak on this salvo, because just watch this. Boop. Citadel on his very first salvo. Now, the Bismarck is a fantastic ship. Probably really where the German battleships really pick up. Granted, the Gneisenau does have that fairly decent secondaries, but the Bismarck is where you get that 10.6 secondaries if you build it as a secondary build, which Freak does have, as well as what I have and on my Bismarck slash VIII. Now, Freak has fired another salvo at the Pensacola, and the major issue with the German battleships is their dispersion is quite terrible at long ranges. They are more primarily designed for brawling, and you can see Freak is actually doing a really good job as far as playing in his Bismarck. He's actually holding his fire, waiting for this Pensacola to show him a broadside so he can get another Citadel. He's holding his fire because there is a mountain in the way. Let's loose, but the Pensacola is actually a fairly nimble ship, so we'll see how the salvo goes. And you can see how bad the dispersion is. Straddling of the ship and then complete overshot on the other salvo. Now he's going to bring his back guns around and he lets loose. Now here's one unique little thing that Freak has over what I generally do with my German battleships is you can see that he does have a spotter plane and he uses it for his advantage, at least seeing over mountains. I generally don't, because I don't see the benefit of using that longer range because the dispersion is quite terrible. Even at around 15.5 kilometers, you're still getting these dispersions where you straddle the target, and granted sometimes you can be lucky, and here he is actually using the spottercraft to get a good estimation on where this Pensacola is going. Now I'm not a big fan of the spotting craft, mainly due to the fact of the angle on the whenever you are zoomed in. I don't really much care for it, but some people are actually pretty good at it, and good job to those people. Now his last salvo does land and leaves the Pensacola on 483 points of damage, or health actually better. So he lets loose another salvo and falls just to the side of the Pensacola. Now here are where the secondaries are really gorgeous. You can just see all these secondaries coming in, and lets loose another salvo. One good hit. Yep. over penetration, takes out and gives Freak his very first kill of the game. Very nice. Now, his positioning was, I guess, a little bit odd, because had I been him, I would have been moving towards B, but it's kind of a good thing because his team has all lemming trained up towards C, and the enemy team has all lemming trained down to A, and so that's going to kind of split the map to where the battle is going to be occurring primarily at B. So he currently has the sight on this Tirpitz, and even though it's very hard to penetrate and Citadel a German battleship, showing broadside to another battleship will generally give you fairly good penetration damage. As you saw on that Tirpitz was around 16k, and that salvo was about 9k, and that was 3 hits. So do be mindful that even though you may be very difficult to Citadel, you're still going to take a significant amount of damage. And this Otago is trying to get away. There is a friendly Tirpitz that is actually just went down to the enemy Bismarck. Otago is gonna crash into the island. Freak lets loose a salvo. Maybe RNGesus will be kind to him. And Citadel. Very, very nice. Now, one thing to keep in mind, and this is probably going to be occurring in a little bit, but keep an eye on the friendly CV. The entire friendly team has moved to C except for one straggler battleship, and this Otago is left on 221 health, and I think he's going to get it. Now, I probably would not have fired my second guns. I would just let the secondaries take care of him because they would have eventually killed him. Now, unfortunately, I don't know if Freak is actually running a complete secondaries build. Unfortunately, I don't have any idea on his captain skills. I'm assuming he went for manual control of his secondary guns because if you can see, he is very easily detected. He's not running a concealment build like what I have on my Bismarck. But back to the carrier. Whenever you're playing carrier, do not sit still. Even if, and especially if you know the enemy team is moving up into your position, because the enemy team is fairly close to the friendly CV. Now this Colorado is getting pummeled away by Freak and his Bismarck. Can he land another good salvo? Oh, not bad. About 77,000 points of damage. Not too bad. And here, Freak is kind of in a bit of a pickle, I would say. There are 2 Tirpitz, a Bismarck, North Carolina all the way south, and another, I believe another battleship, another Tirpitz, currently hammering away, and he's going to have to maneuver out. Now, one good thing that's actually occurring is the fact that a Cyclone is moving in, and this is going to save Freak's life, or at least save him from taking an additional amount of damage, because Cyclones will actually limit the range of spotting to 8 kilometers. Now, if he can just slip away, the Cyclone has not taken quite into full effect, and you can see how well the Bismarck secondaries. This enemy Bismarck is just hammering away with his secondaries. Freak lets off a salvo. Let's see if he can get good damage. Not too bad. He did catch a fire. And that's the beautiful thing about German secondaries is they fire solely high explosive, which, granted, may not always do a significant amount of damage, but there's always that possibility of fire. Now the Bismarck is starting to show Freak a broadside, and RNGesus is extremely kind to him on some of those salvo. He lands around 12k points of damage against that Bismarck, leaving him fairly low on health. It looks like he is currently using a heal at the same time that Freak is using his. Now the enemy team has moved into B. There's at least 4 battleships controlling B at this point in time. There's 2 Tirpitz, actually 3 Tirpitz, mind you. Looks like Freak fires off another salvo. Can he get this kill? There we go. That is the 3rd kill for Freak. Very good job. And the Cyclone has taken into full effect, limiting the range of spotting down to 8 kilometers. Now, for whatever reason, the friendly team is making its way around the south of B, around this island. So it means that they are essentially useless. There's no way they can actually open fire, and there's a few ships there that are full health. It looks like the Turpets and the Magi are full health, and he is spotted once again by the enemy Turpets. And this is where it's going to get epic. It is going to get really epic right here. Turpets open the fire. It looks like kind of a decent size hit, and just watch how these Turpets play. Not this one. Granted, he just got around 5,000 points of damage, but the other full health Turpets. Watch how that captain plays, and he takes another salvo, and this is completely unfair fight. This is not a position you want to be in. You do not want to have a fair fight. You always want to play unfairly against other ships. But see how this Turpets captain is selling his ship. Looks like Freak opens up a salvo, does about 9k, and earns Confederate for his trouble. And it looks like he's able to get back behind this island, but the Turpets returns the favor with a 14k volley. And you can see Freak is fairly low on health against two enemy Turpetses. Now the friendly team has moved into B right now, is currently harassing the Turpets on the closer to B. Now the other Turpets is still showing a broadside, and Freak gets around 16k worth of damage. And this is one nice thing about the Bismarck over the Turpets is the secondaries. Especially if you go to the secondaries build, you can see that the secondaries are constantly harassing this Turpets, and although they may not always be doing a large amount of damage, they can catch fire, and that is going to be very beneficial because honestly Freak is in a kind of a pickle at the moment. He is trying to flee away from this Turpets. This Turpets is trying to hunt him down, and he's gonna have to be careful because on the mini-map you can see a little island right in front of him, and he's gonna have to make a decision, either go on the south side of this island or go on the north. And the Turpets is just hounding him. Now Freak fires another salvo and gets 4 bounces. That is just cruel. Now Freak does have about 15 seconds on a heal. He is only on 8,000 points of health. Now 2,000 points of health. And he's going to have to be careful of this island. So it looks like Freak is keeping an eye on the island. He does get high caliber. His secondaries are just hammering away on this Turpets. He does get his heal up. Does a whopping 13k damage. Can he get rid of this Turpets before he goes down? He's just waiting on the reload on the guns. He's trying to angle away as best he could. Oh, Turpets is actually taking a fair amount of damage, which is good because keep in mind the Turpets captain was full health when he engaged against Freak, and Freak has done a significant amount of damage. Can he finish off this Turpets before he goes down? He does have around 11k points of health. Fires off another salvo, but oh no. The Turpets does get the finishing kill, but the fires on the Turpets are going to put the final nail in the Turpets, and Freak does get flesh wounds. So that is 4 kills in this game, and Freak does a fantastic job. He did over 216,470 points of damage. The friendly team is going fairly strong. It does look like the enemy team is probably going to go down fairly shortly. So Freak's team won, and he is from Germany, so unfortunately I'm not able to read this all, but it's very similar to what we have. And he earned 383,691 silver, 7,423 XP, and 2,232 free XP, which is very fantastic. He earned high caliber, Confederate, and flesh wound. He did a whopping 216,471 points of damage, 81 shell hits, 1 plane shot down, 1 incapacitation, 4 kills, 10 fires, 2 citadels, 1 defended base cap, and 227 secondary hits. And so you can see, even though he did eventually go down, he earned the top of the team with a base XP of 2,474 experience. So most amount of damage was to the enemy Turpets that he was fighting in the last bit there, with a whopping 89,907 points of damage towards him. The Bismarck, the Pensacola, and the ARP Takao were the other ships that he was fighting against. So you can see his secondaries did over 10,800 points of damage, and fires did around 33,000 points of damage. So secondary build is really fantastic in the Bismarck. And after everything was said and done, he received 274,971. My thoughts on the Bismarck: it's a fantastic ship. It's probably one of the better tier 8s. Don't get me wrong, I love my Moggy. Not a big North Carolina fan, but that is just my opinion. I'm not saying it's a horrible ship, but she is very competitive and probably will be used quite frequently in the ranked battles. So I will have to say I will probably eventually get the Bismarck once again, once I actually get up to the curve first and I have plenty of money to actually repurchase her. But if you are still debating whether or not to go up the German battleship line, highly recommend it, because once you get to the Bismarck, at the very least, you are going to have a fun time. So thank you guys so much for watching, and if you like what you saw, hit the like and subscribe button. You guys have a great and fantastic day. Zaijian.